So, PCB pride flag. Now I've been having a think about how I can connect these up, and we've got all of our PCBs here. I'm not totally happy with the painted ones. They don't look that good, but what can you do? I'm terrible at this. So here's the one that I did with cling film, and then when I took it off after, what was it, like 10 minutes? No, less than 10 minutes, 5 minutes or so. It peeled off and left like this crackled, dappled effect. Don't like it, and honestly it's too thick. So underneath those bits I reckon it's probably still a bit soft. So while the colour has come out nice, not going to use it. So this one was painted with acrylic. These two were painted with acrylic, and the other ones are just standard colours. Now I'm going to try and do some UV solder mask again, but I'm going to buy a new light because you guys told me that the one I was using was terrible. And I'm not going to say that you were wrong, because you were probably right. Because I basically followed what I saw loads of other people do online. So, well, I don't know. I also only did it about 5 times, so you can't, you can't rule out stupidity. But I've ordered a new light, exactly the same one that the people on the Adafruit video used. So they've got this UV torch with 100 LEDs, and it's 365 to 395 nanometers. So hopefully that works. We'll find out, because I want to do UV glow in the dark solder mask. We'll see. Anyway, today is about the pride flag. So it is quickly becoming the end of June, which is like Global Pride Month or something. Anyway, so after adding a couple more boards, they're now not as long as they should be to make a nice flag, but whatever. It's all about the symbol. That's all a flag is just a symbol. So this can just be a symbol that's a little bit non-flag shaped. I wonder if there are flags that aren't like this whole 16:9 type deal. Square flag, why not? So I was wondering how we might connect these. And so I took a couple of the boards and did a tester. So this is what the idea was, that I would have a bus bar running down the sides of each one, and that would give it some rigidity. So that would mean it wouldn't fall to pieces. And then I thought, how am I going to power this thing? So my original thought was to have a couple of wires coming up here, and then it would sort of hang off a USB thing. And I was hoping they would be rigid enough that it could be bent over and sort of sit like that. But actually this wire isn't that rigid. I thought I had some stronger wire than this. So I probably want something that's like 2 or 3 millimeters thick, whereas this is probably less than a millimeter. So instead, we're going to do something slightly different. Still going to use these bus bars and still going to connect them on both sides. However, I'm going to try and reinforce the back of it with a PCB. So I'm probably going to use some Vera board for that. Now, I think Vera board's actually a brand name, so strip board we'll call it. So I've got various little bits. So I've got this section here. We've got some of these really, really cheap ones. These have no sort of buses on there. It's all just individual cells. A little bit of a smaller piece there. Got a prototyping board. Got a lovely orange one, which is just these little cells again, and then a much larger piece, but I don't think we'll need the larger piece. Even they can see through it, which is kind of cool. I think we're going to go with this smaller piece. Let's just move these things out of the way, and we won't need all of it. We just need a strip long enough to fit underneath all of those and provide some stability. So we'll need close to all of it, but I don't need that much of it, so I only need a very small portion. Now, I did think about power, and I thought I could use a USB cable, but I kind of like the idea of it being standalone. So I looked at battery power, and I found these little modules, tiny little things, and they're a boost module. Just a little 3-pin sort of breadboard friendly thing. And it'll take, 1 volt up to 5 volts. It's pretty great. I think it's 0.9 volts is the sort of cut off for these. But it starts drawing a heck ton of current when powering one LED from 1 volt. It was drawing 35 milliamps, but the LED at 5 volts would be drawing 1 milliamp. So inefficient at low voltages or low input voltages, but that's okay. I'm not really worried. It's probably not that inefficient anyway. I'm asking a lot from 1 volt really. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to just use a couple of AA batteries. Now I've got a battery holder here somewhere, and that could just plonk on the back. In fact, if I put it right at the bottom, it might be able to stand up on it, but I kind of doubt it. So it just can sort of sit on the back there, and it can lean up against something. And then I'm going to need a switch. And I bought some really, really cool switches recently. I say really, really cool. They're not super cool, obviously, but they are breadboard friendly. And they've just got these 2 pins. So in a breadboard, you can bend those out and then jab them into the breadboard. I used it on the milliseconds clock breadboard, so you can pull those out. But on an actual board, you can just put them through like, oh, like that. So they can just sit in there, and that can be my power switch. Now this thing's rated for about 200 milliamps, I think, this switch, which would be fine, but it's 200 milliamps at 12 volts. So this is 3 volts, so it should be fine. And it doesn't protrude too much through the back of the board. So if I just trim those pins a little, then I can sandwich it on the back of the board. Now I've chosen to do that on this side so that there are no electrical connections on the back here, because it will be touching resistors. So basically we're going to glue this onto the back of the flag and have the power button here. And I have to find some way of shoving this really high up against here, because if we bring it down onto the board, not got an awful lot of space there, so really gonna have to, oh, you can't see that, hang on. Not got an awful lot of space there, so those wires will have to be soldered directly onto the bottom there. In fact, the ground wire doesn't need to be, one of them doesn't need to be actually, because one of them can just come straight across to a bus bar. So it can just come across there, and that won't be a problem. And then we can take another section of this red wire and bring it over to the other side of the bus bar. And that should hook everything up quite nicely. The LEDs are another thing. So let me show you how I've done that. Or rather the 2 options that I had. Right, so I'll turn my power supply. It's currently set to 2.8 volts, which is kind of what we're shooting for, and 200 milliamps, just because I pushed the dial and didn't worry about it. So positive and negative. So positive is the whole back layer here, and negative is over there. And you can see something lighting up. Let's come a little bit closer. So if I hook up positive and negative, positive is the whole ground, well, the whole fill there, the copper fill, and then onto ground. You can see one lighting up, but it's actually on the other side of the PCB. So let's bring that over so you can see it. There we go. So that is side mounted. So this one is side mounted, and it's meant to illuminate the rest of the PCB, and that would be the same across all of them. But there is another way potentially of doing it. So I've got one side mounted there on the green, but it's very white, isn't it? Like even when you blur it out a little bit, it's clearly white. So I could use a green LED, but I don't have colored LEDs for every section. So I've got an alternative. And there we go. So what I've done is I've mounted that LED upside down so that it glows through. And if I come back a bit, it makes it look a bit more green. So I think that's the way to go with these, is to mount them upside down so it sort of shines through and vaguely illuminates the solder mask. And I have blobbed a little bit of acrylic paint on the top just to hide the white back of the LED. I think we're going to go with LEDs first because they're the most difficult, and it's probably easier if they've got a flat surface to do this on, and then we'll do the resistors. Now I have no idea what it's going to be like soldering onto these pads where it's close to acrylic paint. I don't know what it does when it heats up, so we're going to find out. So let's start with purple down here. This, I believe I've got 100, and I'm hoping that works out. If it doesn't, it will just stay turned off and just be completely decorative. I don't actually know how many LEDs I'll need, so let's just drag out a lot. And then, as usual, we'll just do one pad first and then do the rest. Whew. Okay, so that is all of the LEDs soldered on, probably many of them in the wrong orientation. They're going to be terrible to take off if I have to, because they're on boards painted in acrylic, so that will be a nightmare. So next up is the bus bars. No, it's the resistors. Got to do the resistors. Right, well, we're done. That took 24 minutes to do. Yikes. Whew. I'm gonna have a little rest for a minute. Right, it's getting late now, so I think I'm gonna call it a night and come finish this tomorrow. It's about 10 o'clock, so it's gotten dark outside. But I thought we could quickly check whether they work or not. So you should be able to see. Let's come a little closer. Check the focus. So oh, wrong way around. Yeah, they look like they work. We're on the wrong side, obviously, so it's difficult to see. Those ones will work too. Wrong way around. Yeah, those ones will work. Purple. Difficult to see, but they will work. Now this one's got acrylic on it, so we're gonna have to do it handheld. They all work. Wow, I did not expect them all to work. Can't see that. Let's try. There we go. Let's try this one, the black one. Yes, they all work too. Oh my lord. Literally all of them work. How amazing is that? Okay, tomorrow we'll finish this off, but for you it'll be like 5 seconds or less. It's the next day, and yesterday, miraculously, we discovered that all of these worked. I don't know how that, it's like never happened in any of my projects before, but they all seem to work. Now, this evening I've been over some of the solder joints. One didn't even have solder on, so I don't know really how it was working. I mean, I guess it was just pushed down onto the pad, but yeah. So I fixed a couple of the ones that I missed as I was going along, and it's all working now. So now the bit we have to do next is just attach it to a panel. So we need to run the bus bars. I've got my battery holder. I'm going to use just 2 AA batteries. Should be heavy enough. We might see if it will stand up with it, but I don't know. We'll see if we can just put it at the very bottom. It might make it stand up. We'll see. And going to have to score this and cut this down. So I don't want it to be any wider than that battery. And then we're just going to glue it to the back. Hopefully that works out. There to there. So all I'm going to do is score along the Vera board, or strip board, I don't know what you call it. I think Vera board is a brand name. So I'll take my blade down pretty short. It doesn't need to be long. The longer it is, the more likely I am to hurt myself. And use quite a lot of force to score along. One more time. Now it should break along that sort of seam, I guess we've created there. If I'd done this over the side of a table, it would have broken cleanly, but as it is, it's sort of cracked a little. Not a problem, we can deal with that later. And it's left us a bit of a gnarly edge there, but I'm not worried. I'm not actually using the traces. I'm just using it as sort of a mounting board of sorts. I did consider 3D printing something, but that sort of takes time, and I don't really have that because June is quickly going to be over. Right, let's just try. Oh, there we go. You can just do it by hand. Don't need those pliers. Okay, so that's now our little holder. How tall does it need to be? holes in is that? 3. This isn't the usual way that you break the Vero board, but I'm assuming it's going to work. There we go, that should be enough. How have I managed that? I think I've got it wrong somehow. Also, I typed prude flag instead of pride flag. So let's have a look at a pride flag instead and see. Yeah, okay, so brown, black, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Which one am I missing? I'm totally not missing any. I'm just going a little bit loopy. Let's just, well, just gonna have to cut this Vero board again. That's very annoying. Maybe? Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's bring these back. Yeah, that's perfect. Except I forgot to focus. Well, there we go. Let's turn the power supply on and see if we can't run these. Now that we've got exposed bus bars. See how bad it looks. Probably increase the current. Be helpful if I put the connections on the right way. Let's turn these lights off, see if it actually looks like a pride flag. Hey, that's not bad. Let's try with one light. Okay, so the LEDs don't do a lot apart from draw your attention to it, but it looks better in real life. It does look all right. I mean, it's difficult to put LEDs on some of these colours because it doesn't really do a lot. But that's okay, isn't it? Okay, now it's time for a bit of gluing and sticking. So I'm just going to use some crappy all-purpose clear glue. And it's got to be this end actually, so we can trim our wires. So we can trim our bus bars. Actually, I kind of wanted the excess on the top, but I've done it on the bottom now, so it doesn't matter. There's still quite a lot of flex in this, so putting this battery on will give it some rigidity. Right, I'm going to leave that now for, I don't know, like 20 minutes and see if it's done. This is going to be the jankiest thing. So it's all glued together now. There's a little bit of flex in it still, but that's okay. It's only glued from a couple of different points. And I'm not sure if the glue goes absolute rock solid. It might be one of these sort of semi-flexible ones. Anyway, now I need to glue the battery on. We're going to glue it right at the bottom so that it stands up like that. And hopefully it should hold it together. So a bit more glue. Right, I've let that cure now for about 20 minutes, so hopefully it feels a bit solid, that's all right. Now we need to connect up the power, so I've got my button hooked up. I've not soldered it down yet, we're going to do that in a second. In fact, perhaps we should do that right now. Okay, let's just solder this thing on. Right, and then we need to connect up power to that one and then another wire coming off over there. In fact, we can connect power to that side. So let's trim these wires. There we go. Now we'll use a little bit of this red wire that we've got left. And then we'll take that to there and there and we'll be done. A little bit more solder over here. Again, this isn't high current at all. There we go. Right, let's see if it works. Yes! There we go. So there's my little illuminated pride flag. One light on, I think. That looks pretty nifty. Let me show you a little close-up look. So that looks pretty good. I like it. I mean, it's not so good when you look around the back, but I kind of like it. A little bit of pride for you there. So I've been trying to think of how to end this video. I mean, it looks all right. I mean, it looks good even if you're looking at it from a kind of distance. Just not too close. Otherwise you'll definitely see it's one of my projects. But it's hard reflecting on it, I guess, because this isn't a symbol I like. I don't like that it exists. I wish we didn't need this flag. We don't need labels. I wish they didn't exist. I wish that people could just be people. But we don't live in that kind of society now. And so I will hold on to this and fly it from the rooftops, maybe not this version, while it's needed. Because it is needed. I just wish it wasn't. So perhaps on a lighter note, we'll be coming back in the next video with a project with Blitz City DIY. It should be a lot of fun. She's way ahead of it, really. Like, I'm struggling to keep up. So if you followed along with this Pride PCB flag, thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And if you followed along and you don't identify this by this flag, if you don't see yourself in any of those colours, I appreciate it even more. So thanks a lot. And I'll speak to you soon.